Welcome back to another episode of Gals. I'm Christina Warren, Senior Cloud Developer Advocate, and I am joined today by the awesome Rita Zhang, what's your title?
Principal Software Engineer.
Principal Software Engineer, and you are in CSE?
Yes, Commercial Software Engineer. Commercial
Software Engineering, and you work a lot with containers and open source.
Yep.
Okay, so right now we're in San Francisco, California, not our usual Gal space. We're actually in the Microsoft Reactor space, and Rita here just gave an awesome talk and demo about how to use Kubernetes and TensorFlow. So, is your main focus right now at Microsoft basically on containers and open source? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. We feel that containers and specifically the orchestrator space has kind of blown up. And as a developer, I have been very excited for the past few years. And given the acquisition of Deis and the fact that Brandon Burns is part of our product team, I'm just super excited. And I think it's a very exciting time for Microsoft, and I'm just really happy to be part of the journey.
How long have you been at Microsoft?
It's almost 2.5 years now.
Almost 2.5 years. So what were you doing before Microsoft?
Oh yeah, so before I came to Microsoft, I was a software engineer at General Electric. I was helping the cloud team build the infrastructure and the cloud platform for General Electric.
Cool, and so what kind of stuff did that entail?
So this was about probably 4 years ago, where I and many other developers and architects basically evaluated all the containers and orchestrators at the time. And so I went through solutions like Kubernetes, Cloud Foundry, Mesos. So it was definitely the early stage of the container world.
Of the container world, and then that kind of led you into what you do now, which is helping customers kind of figure out what solutions are best for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so how did you kind of get into infrastructure and I guess that sort of thing to begin with? Like what kind of spurred your interest in computer science and tech?
Yeah, I guess in terms of software, I actually started coding probably in 10th grade. And dabble into like web applications and stuff like that. But what really made a difference was my software teacher back in high school. I didn't even know we had a software class, of course. And I got into class, and then the teacher was like, "Oh, you're late about like half of a semester," and he just added me, and I was like started doing homework. And then the thing that really made a difference was he said, "Rita, you should totally pursue a career in this because you have a knack for it." And I think that was like a very pivotal point in my life, and I really thought, wow, I could do this as a living, and it's been a great decision ever since.
Were you computer savvy before you took that software class? Were you interested in technology? Did you use were you maybe building your own web pages or doing things like that beforehand?
I don't think I was like software or computer savvy at all. I've always been really good at math. I loved math. I love engineering. So I've always thought I would go into engineering. And what made a difference in terms of software was, because I took that computer science class and the fact that he gave me that vote of confidence, and it really made a difference. And I really liked that class. So
because it just clicked with you.
Yeah, and it was just really fun. And it was like I had a problem and I could solve it with just writing code. So it was just like, it felt very powerful. And then at the same time, after I graduated from college, I just really want to work with customers because I felt very, again, empowered to solve like real world problem with software. And I felt like it was like one of those skill sets that like, it's kind of like I have my own sort of personal power.
Interesting. So you started taking programming class sophomore year of high school. Had a great teacher who encouraged you. Did you continue taking classes in high school and kind of learning on your own, or?
No, that was the only computer science class that was offered, and that was like the last year of my senior year. But it made me really want to go into it. So in college, I was in EE and CS, and as I grew. Took more classes, I kind of focused more on CS.
More on CS, okay, and less on the engineering
But I think
side.
the engineering foundation helped a lot. Yeah.
Do you think for what you do now, which is a lot of infrastructure design stuff and obviously working with customers, do you think that your background in engineering helps with that? Because in the maybe the planning stages and like kind of figuring out how stuff works together?
I would say so. I definitely think I'm very analytical, and I love tinkering with things, and I'm always like really curious how things work. So I think that curiosity is just like, it's very innate for any engineer. Yeah.
When you were a kid, were you like big into Legos or anything like that? Did you like take stuff apart? I'm just curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still remember breaking apart like a watch. Like probably, I don't even know if it's expensive, but like I broke it. And I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like to take it apart. And of course I couldn't put it back. I think my dad was pretty furious. But yeah, it was like something that, again, that engineering curiosity just definitely resonated with me, yeah.
So you studied computer science and E in college, and when did you kind of make the decision that you, like, what was kind of your focus point on CS in college? Just kind of general stuff, or did you kind of find your way into, I don't want to say DevOps because I think it goes beyond that, but going to kind of like architecture stuff?
And I definitely say like DevOps is more recent, right? I think in terms of my focus, like I loved operating systems, and I really like databases, and I think compiler is really interesting. So I think definitely having those foundations, like data structure, oh my gosh. I still have all those books on my bookshelf. And I think just, just kind of be able to understand the basics is very important. And I also really like doing projects. Like I think for me, like I love the theoretics, but I definitely love the practical a lot more. I love working on projects and working with people and just making that intangible thing a little bit more tangible. Yeah.
Did you figure that out in college, kind of while you were kind of going through your classes?
Yeah.
Kind of realize you're like, all right, I like learning about this theory, but really I just want to build stuff.
Absolutely. That's how I was like, oh, I don't think I can get a master's. Yeah.
What are some of the interesting things over the course of your career, if you can talk about them, that you've maybe helped build for customers, or like solutions you've helped kind of solve or create?
I think really caring about the customer, like, and I think it's probably like a personality thing where, really try to put yourself in their shoes and help identify solutions that will work for them long term, right? And be more of a partner with them rather than like a vendor, right? I think that's really, really important. And I think that's where open source was really resonated with me, because it's where you work as a community regardless what company you're with,
right.
or what position you're at. And I think everyone tries to work towards the common good. And of course that's not always true.
Right.
Yeah. But I think at least the developers are trying to do that.
Were you getting into open source when you were in college? Was that part of kind of?
It was a little more later on.
A little later on,
yeah.
Okay. Because it's interesting, and we've talked to other people at Microsoft about this, but there has been this big shift at Microsoft where we have really started to embrace open source, and it's not just speaking words. It's actually having people like you who are actively engaged in communities and using projects and contributing stuff back. And we have so many contributions to open source. Were you, when you came to Microsoft, was that something that kind of surprised you?
Yes.
Because it surprised me. So I'm just asking.
Well, absolutely. So I still remember like 2.5 years ago, when the recruiter reached out and they were like, oh, would you be interested in working for Microsoft? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then it was like, oh, by the way, you'll be hired to do open source. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? and then, of course, the recruiter talked about like what I was doing at the time and thought that my experience really would help in the open source world. And I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. And I think the final thing that I asked was like the thing that clicked for me was I asked the hiring manager after interviewing with him, I was like, so if I get hired, could I request a MacBook? And he was like, absolutely. I was like, okay. You just proved that you're not the old Microsoft. So I think that was, I know it's only like a MacBook, but it was very, very important
for you to use the tools you're comfortable with.
But also to show that it's not rigid, right? It's able to work with people to make sure that they're productive, and then that Microsoft is the new Microsoft, no longer biased about certain things, but rather open to new ideas and new new opportunities.
Do you think that helps when you are working with customers, having kind of that new kind of approach?
Oh, absolutely. Every time when I show up at a Hackfest with my MacBook or at a meetup, like there's a guy that was here earlier who just came up to me and was like, was that a MacBook? And I was like, yes. and not to say a MacBook is good or better or anything like that, but sometimes, again, speaking to other developers, talking about the tools that they love, talking about the same experience that they have, like working in Linux, working with Python, or working with the tools that they're comfortable with. You build credibility, right? You build credibility and you show them that we're in this just as much as you do. And believe me, when we file issues back to the product team, our team, we do a lot of that because we use MacBook, right? And a lot of things don't work as well on MacBook. Why? Because some of the product teams only use Windows. And so we of course we give feedback to the product team, but I also think that's like a culture change, right? Is when you get enough people inside of the company fighting for people outside of the company using the tools that they use every single day, that's powerful.
No, I think you're absolutely right. That's really well said. What kind of got you interested in containers specifically?
I mean, this was like years ago, right?
Yeah.
But I think at the time it just kind of really made sense. Like, before that it was virtual machines, and then everybody was talking about cloud and lightweight, and so it was just like very obvious as the next thing, right? In terms of the progression of this space, right?
Did part of that maybe appeal to you, since you were saying before you had like an interest in operating systems and in compilers and things like that? Do you think that might have been part of kind of the interest too? Is that maybe the association between containers and how OSs work?
Absolutely, I definitely think that's part of it. And I also think maybe because it is closer to the operating system, it kind of gives you a chance to kind of go deeper. And I think a good engineer should always have that curiosity to want to go deeper.
What do you think is the next big thing happening maybe in the container space? Microsoft is obviously heavily invested in Kubernetes, so are a lot of other places, but do you think do you think like is still kind of the next big movement, or what else do you think is kind of on the horizon?
Well, I think in terms of Kubernetes, there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that don't quite work well in production. And like in terms of and again, Kubernetes is not a platform, right? So I think that's probably the next thing. I think folks like Red Hat, they already have OpenShift and CoreOS. They have Tectonic.
They just bought CoreOS.
Yeah, like I think these people they've made the investment a long time ago, and they are making that this industry a lot better. So I definitely think there's more improvement in platform, but also open source platform going forward. I think there's going to be more competitions in terms of who runs it better, and also who offers the best developer experience. Because at the end of the day, all this stuff is nothing without developers.
You talked before, about how your high school teacher was kind of the pivotal moment for you. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And before he'd said those things to you, you'd considered being an engineer, but you hadn't really considered a career in computers?
Right.
Okay. So, how important do you think it is especially for women, because we're so underrepresented in this industry, to have champions and teachers? How important do you think that is for them to have mentors or people out there to kind of keep an eye out and say those things to them?
I think is super important, and I think I'm probably a living proof of that. I had no interest in computer science because I have very little contact with it, I would say. No one around me was a computer science major. My mom was a chemist, my dad was a physicist, so that's why I wanted to go into engineering. But having said that, I think having strong mentors is absolutely important. But I think for the most part, I think it's exposure. I think it's having access to these, whether that's education or the tools, or internet, right?
Yeah.
I think all of that a combination of that is probably very helpful.
So exposure is a big thing. I mean, this is a loaded question, and if you don't have an answer for it, it's okay, but what can we do to help improve exposure? Because so many people, we think that it's so easy, there are so many coding camps, there are other things, but limited people have access to those types of things. So what can we do you think, especially as like Microsoft, like what can we do to help improve that?
I definitely think education. I can go on days to talk about what is wrong with education today, but I'm not going to do that. But essentially, I think, I think it's important to learn the fundamentals. And I'm going to bring up this thing that Elon Musk said, because I think his kids go to this special school or something where they don't follow the K-12 curriculum. Like they just focus, like if the kid wants to learn something, they just go learn it. And I think that's kind of cool. I think it's good to expose them to stuff, but once they decided that's what they want to do, they should just spend time focusing on it rather than spending 12 years learning something that they may never ever use. But I probably digressed.
No, that's interesting. But I guess maybe there's kind of a chicken and the egg problem, because I'm with you. I think it's, if you know that you're interested in something, focusing on it, but how do we maybe expose people, in addition to having the education there, how do we expose people so that people like you can say, this is something that interests me?
So yeah, I mean, a lot of schools nowadays have computer science classes. I definitely think in very near future that it would probably just be the same thing as math, like it's a required class for everybody. So I think having exposure there definitely helps. But I also think like having people who do what we do and just like talk about what you do as an engineer, and I think that would just help like get the word out with your family, with your friends, and talk about it with their kids, right? And I think going to meetups, going to conferences, talking to college kids, like I think that all of that helps, obviously. And I also feel like we as an industry, like we should also not separate the men and the women. Like I think I was talking to someone earlier about this, is I kind of wish we would just talk about technology without having gender in there at all. Yes, we need more women, but we shouldn't identify women and call them out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of other women in your computer science classes in college?
I did not, and what I'm about to say is going to sound surprising, but I didn't realize I was a minority in this field until like probably a few years ago. And why? Because it just never occurred to me that that there weren't a lot of women, or there weren't a lot of like engineers. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't see gender as a difference, but like it just never occurred to me. So I don't know.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. And you had an interest and you were able to pursue it.
Yeah.
You didn't feel.
I didn't feel like I was limited by anything. Yeah.
That's probably important, and you didn't feel like you were being held back because of anything.
I was really lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so we're now going to do what we call the lightning round.
Oh God.
So I'm just going to ask you some random questions, and you're just going to answer as fast as you can. Just the first thing that comes to mind, or not as fast as you can, just the first thing that comes to mind. All right. What's the first thing you do every morning?
Brush my teeth.
Okay, you do that, like you don't like look at your phone, like.
Well, I do.
Yeah. Okay, I'm the same way.
I was thinking like getting up.
Yeah, getting up. Okay. So get up, you look at your phone, then brush your teeth. All right.
Yeah.
What's the most used app on your phone?
Emails. Yeah.
Email. Yeah. Do you have like a favorite social network?
Twitter.
Twitter's a good one.
Yeah.
What's your favorite programming language?
Oh, Go.
Yeah. What's your least favorite programming language?
Ooh, I don't want to piss off any community, so I'm going to take the fifth.
Okay, fair enough. We will do the Andy Cohen rules, so you can plead the fifth.
Oh God.
It's good. You've worked with a lot of customers and like help them solve problems. Can you maybe give an example of a cool problem that you helped solve, or a solution you helped architect?
Let me think which one I can talk about.
Sure.
Well, let's take what we talked about tonight at the meetup. So we worked with a company called Lipit. I think they're a YC in the city, a startup who focuses on basically running creating models and trainings for predictions for their customers. And as part of our collaboration, we basically worked with them to figure out how to run their trainings at scale. And why is this more relevant for them? Because they have to, like the solution that they built basically needs to scale on demand when their users schedule training, right? So their customers need to like use their system and schedule jobs and all that. So they needed something that is actually can grow and shrink as the demand grows and shrink. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. What's your favorite text editor?
Oh, code.
Code.
Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite shell or terminal app?
I just use the term.
Terminal.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people have like their own customers.
Yeah,
so
I
just
know.
curious. Yeah. All right. What is one thing about you that might surprise people to know about you? Like, something you're interested in. Like, what's your favorite TV show?
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother. All right. All right. Rita, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions and to talk to us about what you do here at Microsoft. It's awesome. We need more people like you. I love that you're working with open source. Love that you're helping educate customers come up with solutions and contributing back to the community. And the talk that Rita gave on using Kubernetes and TensorFlow, we will link to. It's awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you.